This is the first lecture for the course of brand management. But before going into details, we need to understand that why we need to understand brand management. According to estimates, there are approximately 300 million brands in the world. Now, among these 300 million brands, when you are going to launch your brand or you are standing among these brands, what should be the task? Task is how to stand out, how to make yourself different, look different in the eye of your consumer. Regardless of investment, revenues, or company size, one of the strongest differentiator an organization can have is its brand. But brand strength doesn't happen on its own. It's a competitive advantage that need to be earned. It takes organizational self-reflection, focus, and discipline to create a brand that customers prefer over competitors. That's why brand management is important. The brand must have rules placed around it to be easily upheld and presented appropriately. And it needs to be considered to a quickly changing world with numerous cultural nuances. Brand management is an ongoing process that involves maintaining consistency around your brand and delivering on the values your organization holds to forge a positive association with your audience. This includes facts like consumer satisfaction, packaging, visual presentation, the competition, and many more. It's also a critical business practice for organizations of any size who want to stay relevant in the minds of today's powerful consumer. From the person who answers the phone at your front desk to the sales representative they interact with, to the website page they visit, to the sport people they chat or email, your organization is sending a message. Your brand isn't just a logo, a campaign, or a tagline. It's the culmination of every experience a person has with your organization, which leaves a perception in their mind. Unfortunately, you can't control perceptions. You can only influence them. The concept of brand development depends upon add value first. We all know that coffee is a very popular drink all over the world. According to the latest coffee statistics from the International Coffee Organization, about 1.4 billion cups of coffee a day are poured worldwide to 125 million coffee drinkers. Now, when these coffee beans are in raw state, their selling price is from zero point 0.4 to zero point 0.6 rupees per gram. When the same coffee bean is roasted, put in a paper bag, and is being sold, it turns from commodity to goods, and the price goes from zero point 0.4 to 4 to 6 rupees per gram. When the same roasted coffee beans are grounded, mixed with water and sugar, and served as a drink, the same price jumps to 50 to 70 rupees per gram. But when this 50 to 70 rupees per gram coffee is being turned into a brand, then it's being sold from 200 to 250 rupees per gram. So that's adding value first. Once the value is added, Then comes positioning, pricing, branding, and communication around the value proposition. Now, here comes one big question. How and why to add value to commodity of zero point 0.4 rupees per gram to 250 rupees per gram? That's one big question. The experience economy is the base theory of this concept. It is related to customer experience and is an important element to consider in the creation of competitive advantage while developing a brand. We are now living in an experience economy. So how do we harness the power, the opportunity, and the insight in this concept while also improving the customer's experience? The experience economy is not a new concept. It merely augments the relationship economy premise. The experience economy posits that both consumer and business want more than just delivery of product and services. They expect that an exceptional, positively charged, and memorable experience will come packaged with their purchase or use of commodity. In July 1998, Harvard Business Review article, Welcome to the Experience Economy, authored by Joseph Pine and James Gilmore, summarized this concept. They said, from now on, leading edge companies, whether they sell to consumer or businesses, will find that the next competitive battleground lies in staging experiences. Imagine the wisdom in 1998, 21 years ago, speaks truth to us today in 2020. Over the past 2 decades, the experience economy has more than taken off. It has become the expectation. So much so that in today's economy, not only are leading edge companies expected to deliver a tremendous experience, virtually all companies are expected to deliver a positively charged experience to their customers. And our expectation of what denotes a positive experience has evolved as we have become groomed through an always on digital universe, social media, mobile, text, etc. We have changed our behaviors and expectations as a consumer. A recent survey in USA found that 80% of customers choose to leave a brand due to poor customer experience. Research from the US Chamber of Commerce indicates that up to 67% of customers switch brands not due to precise price or features, but due to customer experience or a perceived lack of attention, personalization, and engagement by the brand. Today's consumers are digital bunch. That's an understatement if ever one existed. We are constantly searching, communicating, and checking in. Each action we take, whether we are on a mobile device of choice or at our desktop or in a garment store or in a restaurant, has the same end game. Satisfy me. Give me the answer to my questions. Give me a platform to reach out to those around me. Give me a way to share and explore. Oh, and do all those things immediately, if you don't mind. Humor. As a consumer, our interactions with brands are no different. We no longer simply make a purchase and walk away. Consumers seek and often expect, whether we realize it or not, additional utility from brands we patronize. We want to feel like they are listening. We don't just want the goods or services, but we want an experience to sweeten the deal. Welcome to the experience economy, where, as the Harvard Business Review put it, a company intentionally uses services as the stage and goods as the props to engage individual customer in a way that create a memorable event. It's not B2B thing or a B2C thing. It's not a business to business thing or business to consumer thing. It's a value thing. Consider our personal and professional lives are weaved together digitally and through blended experiences. From consumers' experience point of view, there are two types of experiences: customer participation and customer connection. Within the experience economy, there are two types of interfaces a consumer can have with the brand, and several conclusions to draw from the distinction between the two. Customer participation: customer can participate actively or passively in an experience. In active participation, a consumer plays a key role in creating the event or interaction that generates the experience. In connection experience, physical and mental connectivity determines experience level 2. The two ends of the connection spectrum are absorption and immersion. For example, if you are taking notes in a lecture, you are more absorbed in the connection to the material than you would be if you were studying alone from a textbook. If you are watching a supporting event, standing on the immediate sidelines, you are immersed in your connection to that experience. One type of connection to experience is not more telling of consumer behavior than the other, although it's an important for marketing. At the end of the day, having the connection in the first place is the most important part. There are many considerations before building a brand amid the experience economy, but one stands out. If you want to build brand affinity, give the people what they want. What they want, it turns out, is an experience, something memorable, something they can connect with, something that makes them feel like less of a checkbook and more of a participant. Yes, you are selling your goods or your services, but what else do you have to offer to your consumers? Can you fulfill a need they didn't ask to, or maybe even they didn't know they had, somewhere within their interaction with your brand? Accomplish this. You'll have the loyalty of mobile social generation of consumers who can't wait to share their experience. Whenever this sign comes in front of us, we immediately recognize it. Yeah, we know this is a gender symbol representing female. If we see this sign, we immediately come to know that wherever this sign is glowing, this means that shop, that office, that workshop, anything that's open is their opening hour, is their working hour. These logos, these symbols, these signs, from meaning perspective, they have two parts. A signifier, the visible part, and a signified, the idea, the meaning or the concept behind. We all know smoke signifies fire. That's the saying, where there is a smoke, there is a fire. Similarly, the facial expressions often manifest unseen emotions. Even words or letters, which are only sounds, carry meaning to communicate and pursue. Like sign and symbols, brands are also imaginative signposts, signifying sign, object relations, and connecting specific sign to definite objects. Take for instance the golden arches of McDonald's or the music of wall ice creams. Kids scream for a happy meal at the very sight of the arches, or for ice cream even without looking at the vendor cart in the street. For children, the arches become a clear representation of food and fun, while for adults, golden arches symbolize many other things, such as fast food, quick, consistent service, clean washrooms, all of which are instrumental brand identity markers in impressing the image of a brand in consumers' consciousness. Scientific domain of study that explore the actions of sign system is called as semiotic. It lays out fertile territory on how brands assimilate to provide meaning and representation in the consumer ecosystem. Though brand owners and custodians create identities, consumers are actively involved in the process of signification, thereby constructing brand meaning and related connections. Every time consumer groups decide to use and recognize a sign as a vehicle to interpret vessel of other intangible qualities, in another mood, brand managers can also actively employ semiotic elements to define or aggregate brand reference. Since a brand is a system of sensory signs that incites consumers in a symbolic process, which then contributes to tangible value, semiotic is considered as one of the keystone of brand building.
Now, pause the lecture for a moment and think for the craziest, dumbest brand or product selling idea that can actually make money. Write this on a piece of paper and then later compare with the one I'm going to share with you from the pages of selling history in the next slides. The idea I'm going to share with you made $1.5 million in just 6 months with a selling price of approximately $4 a piece. You may have never heard the story of the Pat Rock. Believe it, exists in reality. The Mexican beach stone that could be purchased in bulk for less than a penny retailed for 3.95 US dollars and made the inventor Gray Dell a millionaire during 70s. But Dell didn't really get rich off the rock. He got rich off a cardboard box. Dell was working as a freelance advertising copywriter in California that year when, while sitting with friends, the conversation turned to the destructive nature of pets. Dogs and cats, they ruin furniture. Worse, they require constant attention, from being walked to being fed to cleaning up after them. Dell said that he didn't have to worry about any of that because he had a pet dog. It was, of course, a joke, and it got a laugh. But Dell decided there could be more than that. He went home and began writing an owner's manual for this hypothetical pet dog, which detailed how best to handle it, the tricks it could perform, and how it could remain a faithful companion due to its long lifespan. The joke was not so much the rock itself, but the way it was presented. In addition to the manual, Dahl conceived of a cardboard box with air holes that resembled the kind used by pet shops. It was it also bore a passing resemblance to McDonald's Happy Meal container. Dahl's motivation in making a serious effort to monetize his pet rock was due in large part to his precarious financial situation at that time. He was struggling to keep up with his living. He recruited two colleagues to come on as investors. They both signed in, with one investing $10,000, a considerable sum in the 70s, especially when the intention was to sell virtually worthless rocks. Dell believed people would see the absurd nature of the pet rock and recognize the humor of it. He boxed the rocks with the manual, which was like a comic book. The rocks were purchased from a local sand and gravel company, which sourced them from Mexico's beach. Dell debuted the rock at a gift show in San Francisco in August of 1975, then waited for the reaction. He got one. People understood the appeal right away, and he began taking orders. A customer, a single customer purchased 1,000 rocks. Newsweek did a story with a picture, which spread the word. Dell had retail and media credibility for what was specifically a nonsense product. His joke was turning into a national phenomenon. When the holiday season arrived, Dell estimated that he was selling up to 100,000 pet rocks a day. Ultimately, he would sell between 1.3 to 1.5 million of them within a period of just a few months. His investors made $200,000 back on his initial investment of $10,000. Dell gifted both investors with Mercedes, making 95 cents in a profit on each pet rock sold. Dell earned over $1.5 million within 6 months. He launched his own firm, Rock Bottom Production, for producing TV shows.
The fun part is, pet rocks can still be found online, though it's no longer Dell's business. Even today, you can find all the same instructions as it was at the time on launch of this brand. Dell died in 2015. Of the unsold rocks he had left over at the end of the fade, he was indifferent. He said if they didn't sell, he would just use them to repave his driveway. Now the question is, from where the branding starts? Or let's put it like this, from where the human branding starts. Yes, it starts by giving name. Let's try to learn about the brand naming process. The brand naming process is one of the most critical part of your brand building strategy. Without a memorable name, how could your company attract the attention and adoration of your target audience? Today's consumers use brand names for more than just defining their favorite brands. The right title can improve your chances of earning new customers by showing people the fundamental values you stand for. Memorable names also generate customer loyalty and simplify the process of the word of mouth marketing. While there is no doubt that choosing a great name is a crucial part of starting up branding, it's also one of the toughest challenges you'll face as a brand manager. Get your decision right, and you become a household name like Google or Uber or Gourmet. Choosing the wrong title, and you would never be bothered or remembered. A strategic brand naming process increases your chance of success and keep risks to the minimum. At first, creating a strategic brand naming process seems simple enough. There is only so many words and letters to choose from after all. However, when you sit down to find the ultimate name, you'll discover how complicated it is. While there are plenty of brand naming tools, online business name generators, which help with finding initial ideas, but the best name requires an in depth understanding of your organization or a brand. Unfortunately, this is one thing that computers just can't do it better. So to start with, you should have the clear objective. You should have a set of a clear objectives before you start exploring your creative side. It's important to consider the fundamentals of your strategic brand naming process. You should develop a brief that outlines the objectives you want to accomplish with your brand name and identity you are creating for your brand. Secondly, you should articulate your core identity. Another serious step you'll need to take before you name yourself involves figuring out what your company stands for and what you are trying to achieve. The best brand naming process will show you how to highlight your brand values in your title, so your audience can begin to see your unique personality before they ever engage with your company. When establishing your core identity, you should consider why your company exists. That's going to be your brand vision. What your company do, that's your brand mission. How you do what you do, that's your brand values. These aspects of your identity encapsulate and influence everything you do. They should play an essential part of your brand naming strategy. And then create your user personas. Some companies make some companies make the mistake of starting their brand naming process before they have begun to build out their user personas. However, it is important to remember that your name needs to do more than just define your brand. It also needs to speak to your target audience. If you don't know who you are creating your brand identity for, then you'll have a hard time finding a compelling name. Once you have got the initial element of the brand naming process out of the way, you can move on to the discovery and the brainstorming stage. The discovery part of the strategic brand naming process is where you lay all of your cards on the table so that you can start to assess what your brand stands for and how you are going to convey that information to your customers. Before you get too far into the brand naming process, ask yourself how you would define an auspicious name, what your main concern about naming are, who should be involved in decision making stage. While the idea of going wild with your naming process may sound fun, particularly when you are looking for a ways to differentiate your brand, most companies do need some prompts and constraints to work with during the discovery and brainstorming stage. So it's better to start by writing down the adjectives that describe your brand, products, and services. Describing what you want your consumer to feel when you think about your company. Asking people to share words that are associated with your organization. And remember, the brainstorming stage is where you gather all the raw ideas that will fuel your brand naming process. This stage should be inspired by your business objectives and core messaging. Another useful way to make your brainstorming session productive is to remember the different categories of brand names available to choose from. These, these categories are expressed with different names in the literature of branding. Here in this lecture, we are going to learn about some of the most common types of brand names. Brand names are the identification indicator with which a brand will be called. It is something that sticks with the brand for a lifetime, and for the companies have to ensure a proper and justified name for their brands. It is considered as a critical process which will define the success or a failure of a brand in many terms. Sometimes it would take weeks, months, or even years to name a brand properly. Based on the brand name, almost entire marketing activities will be dependent, like designing a logo, packaging, positioning, etc. The first type is descriptive brand names. These type of brand names explain the service offered by the company in a proper descriptive way. There is hardly any room for creativity in the brand name, since the name is complete and simple, which describes the occupation of the company. The positive aspect of having a clear and clean brand name is that it describes the brand story clearly and effectively to the audience. But on the other hand, the negative part is that when company thinks of diversification, the same brand name doesn't go with the new product line or a business. For example, Authentic Clothing Company. The brand name is simple and communicates the business to the customer. But if at all ACC decide to go into some other business or a product, the brand name may not appeal to the customer and it would look out of place. Another similar example would be Pizza Hut. The second type is evocative or suggestive brand names. These are considered a cornerstone of the brand naming and brand positioning. They usually singular, very creative, and act as powerful differentiator in the industry. They are exactly on the opposite side of the creative spectrum, and their names employ suggestion or a metaphor to bring to the mind the powerful experience or the positioning of the brand. For example, Cardi, Nike, Amazon, owing to their originality and innovative brand names, they are much easier to remember. It is essential that they maintain their dignity in the market by offering the product that suit their brand name, since within an evocative brand name comes to a great responsibility. The next one is invented brand names. The products which are entirely innovative or new and first in the market, naming such product is a big challenge. That is when invented brand names comes into the picture, as they help in naming a product which is introduced for the first time. They are not only distinctive, but they are articulate and offer creative names with attitude for a brand. They are not at all easy to make, but very easy to remember if it clicks with the brand. Most of the time, Latin or Greek are used as a root words to create the brand name, or many times they are just made up phrases out of nowhere, means having roots to no language. For example, Dasani, Kodak, etc. Most interesting thing is that they have no inherent definition assigned to them, which is the most challenging part of these type of brand names. To ensure that they are very easy to remember, marketers tend to spend a lot of money to establish their meaning in the minds of the customers. Lexical or etymological brand names. These brand names rely entirely on the wordplay of their remembrance. Having a combination of compound words, spelling, and foreign words are the most popular styles of naming this kind of brand names. Lexical brand names are more often than not clever, at times too clever to get their impact on the customers. Some examples of lexical brand names may include Dunkin' Donuts, Burger King, Coca-Cola. These type of brand names appeal mostly to contemporary audience who have been exposed to such name for long. As an example, Coca-Cola derives its name from the from the coca leaves and the cola nuts, where the cola was written with Kola. They both were used as a flavoring. The founder of Coca-Cola just replaced the K of the cola to C to make the name look better. The fifth one is acronymic brand names. Most of the times, acronym brand names are acronyms of the entire name of the company, which might be difficult to pronounce. Acronyms have always been used as a brand name for a long time. For example, IBM, it comes from International Business Machines; PTCL, Pakistan Telecommunication Corporation Limited; HSBC, Hong Kong Shanghai Banking Corporations. These are some few of the examples. Next class is eponymous brand names. There are so many products where the name of it is what the market call it. When something is eponymous, it takes its own name as its title. This is very common in the fashion industry. Many fashion designers use their own name to create their eponymous fashion brands. Some examples: Ralph Lauren, Christian Dior, Calvin Klein, Donna Karan. Is it ego that drives designers to use their own names, or is it clever marketing? The definition of eponymous is something or someone that gives its name to something else. An eponym is a person, a place, or a thing for whom or for which something is named or believed to be named. Fashion designers are often creating eponymous labels or eponymous brands. It is important to note that some fashion designers create multiple brands, some of which may use their full name and other may use variation of the name or the brand. When clothing companies consider fashion marketing, it is important to determine a good brand name. Making a proper decision when deciding on a brand label is critical for success. Using the designer's name for the brand can provide benefits, but it also can provide a negative outcome. For example, if the designer associated with the brand does something stupid to tarnish their own name, it also has a significant negative impact on the brand. For example, back in 2011, in February, Dior announced that it had suspended John Galliano following his arrest over an alleged anti-Semitic speech in a Paris bar. The same day, a Paris-based citizen journalism site, Citizen Site, received video of Giuliano on a similar rant in the same bar the previous December. This incident tarnished the name of John Giuliano and the Dwyer both. Another class of the brand names is the suggestive brand names. Suggestive brand names indicate what a product or service is being delivered. They can function as metaphor, analogy, or an association. Twitter, for instance, is a communication platform that it's like a flock of birds tweeting at each other. Choosing a brand name is one of the most important components in launching a new product, service, or a company. Brand names can be descriptive, telling consumer exactly what is being sold. For example, Cartoon Network, Hotels.com, Sports Illustrated, the Weather Channel. Suggestive brand names tell the consumer something about the product or a service, but in a creative manner so that they are not plainly descriptive. In my opinion, suggestive brand names are the best for launching new brand and new business. It's safer to choose suggestive brand names. Another class is the founder brand names. Traditionally, brand names also have been associated with the names of their founders, and the tradition dates back early in time as old as Ford's, which is named after Henry Ford, the owner of the Ford Company, or Disney, which is named after Walt Disney, or in present times, J. Dot, that's named after Jamshed Junaid. It is also found that some companies have used certain names of celebrities to promote their brands as a signature edition. For example, Angelina Jolie's signature edition of a handbag for H&M. These are not classified as founder brand names, but it is close to having a brand name on similar lines. After you have finished the discovery and brainstorming part of your brand naming process or strategy, it's time to get down to brass tacks. When you are brainstorming, you are simply throwing together ideas that might work for your company or your brand. The refinement phase is where you begin to look at the names that will speak to your audience. In the following slides, we will learn about some of the brand naming tools you can use. As mentioned previously, there are many different kinds of products and company names that brand can choose from. Different titles work best for specific type of organization. That's why it's so important to analyze your brand and the identities of your competitors before you can make any choice. For this, you can use the positioning charts. In your brand naming process, you should examine your closest competitors and the kind of the names that they use to define themselves so you can get a better idea of the names that work best in your sector. You can then decide whether you are more comfortable sticking to a tried and tested formula or whether you want to make sure you stand out. Another nice tool is the valuation charts. As your comprehensive brand naming process starts to dwindle your long list of brainstormed ideas down into a shorter selection of potential titles, valuation charts are how you can make sure that you choose the best possible name for your company. You can develop a way of scoring names against each other by breaking them down and evaluating them. By scoring each title under your chosen criteria, you can use your evaluation chart to help you understand what you like and don't like most about your list of names. Every individual's brand naming process strategy may differ to others, but some of the points you should include in your evaluation charts are that how your name looks on paper and nowadays on screen, how much it stands out from the competition, how much meaning it has, whether it has an emotional resonance, whether it fits with your local brand's personality,